Welcome into Stacking the Box. It is June 7th, and I am joined by someone much better looking than Mark Carmen. It is Mike Tanier of Football Outsiders. Used to write here at Fansided for a little while. Had a great column called Come On, Coach, which hopefully you read. But Mike is nice enough to join us while Carm is flying back from Orlando from the Fansided Palooza, whatever the hell you want to call that, 2022. So Mike, obviously, Football Outsiders, analyst, scribe, provocateur, all the adjectives apply. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm having an epiphany as we speak, and as I'm watching my Twitter scroll, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to surrender. I'm just going to do nothing but make listicle garbage for the rest of my life. All I am seeing right now, going completely viral and getting all the attention, is this terrible head coaching list that somebody made. They put Cliff Kingsbury number 4, and every single one of our colleagues, all of whom have stuff they need to share and have like close friends and coworkers that they need to promote, are all talking about this list and not the good hard work that you might be doing, I might be doing, Aaron Schatz might be doing whatsoever. So I quit. I surrender. Hey, internet, you know who my number 1 coach is in the NFL? Matt Eberflus. He's number 1. Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. I'm going to put it on a listicle because that seems to be how this job is done anymore.
Well, so it's not just somebody who put it out. Pro Football Focus put it out, which may be Pro Football Focus put this list out. And as you mentioned, look, Belichick is 1, John Harbaugh 2, Andy Reid is 3, Cliff Kingsbury is 4. My initial reaction when I saw the list, which I tweeted out, was, did Cliff Kingsbury's parents put out this list? And then I thought to myself, that might have been aggressive even for Cliff Kingsbury's parents. Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season in like 87 years as a Steelers coach, is not on the top 10. But Mike McCarthy is. The same Mike McCarthy who basically single-handedly won money for everyone who bet the Niners last year in that wildcard game. Sean McVay, not on the list. I got to tell you, I was looking at that list and said, all we're missing at this point is like Adam Gase, like posthumously being put on the list. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I really normally I see crap like that and I'm like, all right, it's just got to be a troll, right? Like it was that list. Like if you're not on Twitter, maybe a year or two ago, people put out like the top 25 running backs of all time. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like there were misspellings. It was purposefully just to piss people off.
Right.
This is like your Pro Football Focus. You are owned by a guy who does Sunday Night Football, and you have Cliff Kingsbury might be the 4th best head coach in his division.
Look, they did this, and Schrager tweets, wow, that's a really bold decision. We'll have to get you guys on the show to talk about it. They win. They win. Football Outsiders would never put – I'll tell you what happened. Cliff Kingsbury has a high 4th down, go for it rate. And if you run that through, the analytics, grinder, it'll come out that he's an aggressive coach. He does it at the right times. So that's going to be high on your list. Now, Football Outsiders, we would do that. We would stick it in this category and say, this is for December, going back to like his days in college. We would definitely run it through the BS detector and say, no. There are coaches with Super Bowl rings who belong above that. Not every outlet's going to do that. Some of them are willing to run in the marketplace with a goofy idea to get attention, and that's what we're saying here.
Look, the bottom line is, let's call it what it is. Okay, it's a stupid, bad list.
Yeah.
Okay, made for attention on June 7th because that's what it is.
And we're paying attention to it. I did it. I just did what oh my God, they caught me.
Yeah, right. We just gave 5 minutes worth of publicity. So again, the wins keep coming. All right. Well, here's the losses keep coming for the Cleveland Browns. So we don't have to go through the whole thing and recap it for everybody because anyone listening to this podcast is very well aware of what's happened this offseason. I wrote my column on it on Monday. Hopefully people read that. So if you haven't been paying attention the last week, Deshaun Watson is now up to 24 civil suits against him, even 2 dozen. And the last one, it's pretty well out there if you'd like to find it as to the allegations against him, the details involved. It's not pretty. The Browns, for their part, if they dug their heads any further into the sand, would actually be on the other side of the globe at this point. They won't make Deshaun Watson available during OTAs, which is, for anyone unaware, incredibly rare. Like, your head coach and your quarterback are pretty much always made available.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that Deshaun Watson has to sit there and talk about his legal situation. He wouldn't do that anyway. He would decline to talk about it. Fine. But then be made available to comment, decline to talk about it, and then talk about football things. The Browns don't even let him do that. Jimmy and Dee Haslam are nowhere to be found. Nor were they, by the way, when he was brought on. They did their own separate Zoom call. They weren't at the press conference. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry were forced to walk that plank. I guess, Tanya, my question here is, where does this go now? I mean, everybody keeps talking about they're expecting a suspension, could be soon. I mean, I'll say this. My 2 cents, I think if you're Goodell, you either put him on the commissioner's exempt list or you suspend him indefinitely.
Right.
And then circle back. Because if the NFL comes out and gives him 6 games, and then in August a video surfaces, like, you then have to double back. If you suspend him indefinitely, you don't have to double back. You can just end the suspension whenever the time becomes appropriate.
Right. Well, I think we all know whatever happens is going to happen on July 1st at 4:59 p.m. That's right before we all leave for 4th of July weekend. And many of us in our media go, and the baseball all-star game comes, and that's what the NFL will do, whether it's nothing, which, gosh, I can't imagine them doing nothing, or something like what you suggest there. For me with this, I used to crave justice, or expect justice, or demand justice. Well, I've given up on justice in a lot of these things. I hate to say it, but I'm jaded now. I don't think we're going to see anything close to justice. So then I used to think about consequences. Well, there should still be meaningful consequences for somebody with this many allegations, this much evidence that something very, very troubling is happening, with his own lawyer doing this sort of backpedal thing, this sort of creepy things like, well, stuff might have happened, but that's not illegal. That's the hill that they're retreating to at this point. I'm giving up on consequences right now. I just want common sense. This is terrible for the NFL. This is terrible for the sport, for the team, for the Cleveland Browns organization. I mean, it's terrible for society and women as well, but for the people who are just making dollars and cents decisions, this is awful right now. When will common sense prevail and the NFL say this is a potential catastrophe, a catastrophe in the making, and we have to not get in front of it, but get behind it in such a way that we're at least not setting ourselves up for what you say. The video drops just as training camp begins, just as everybody's trying to rev up, and now we have to backpedal and do something about it at that point.
I really think there's a fair chance that the Browns paid Deshaun Watson $230 million to play like 20 games. Look, this has continued to spiral in a way that these allegations, these civil suits, came to light over a year ago at this point.
Yes.
Like, it's not like this happened a week ago, and hey, they'll get settled. And this has been going on and on and on. And now it's been reported that the original 22 civil suits, he offered each of these women $100,000 with an NDA attached to it.
Right.
And reportedly, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, 18 of these women were willing to settle that. 4 were not. And Deshaun Watson said, well, then I'm not settling any of them, which seems like a terrible idea. But now, like, you just end up in this, like, Dante's Inferno situation where, like, he can't settle these cases now. Now it's almost gotten to a point where it feels like and I'm not a legal expert, but it almost feels prudent at this point to just take it all the way here and just say, look, we're going to go through court. We're going to see how things play out. If you're Tony Busby and the 24 plaintiffs. So, and a lot of people feel like this isn't going to be adjudicated until the end of the season.
Right.
If you're the NFL, like, you want him front and center in a game. I just can't imagine the league being like, yeah, Deshaun, listen, get out there, and we'll put you in the 425 slot. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
And we'll force Troy Aikman or Al Michaels or somebody to furfur all through your situation. And so the broadcast networks take this hit as well, as their announcers desperately try to talk around this while a football game is going on. And you're talking about a guy whose lawyer thinks going out publicly and saying, just so you know, happy endings are not illegal. Yeah, he thinks that's a good defense at this point. So this is not a legal genius who is giving Deshaun Watson tremendous advice on how to pursue things. This is the guy you get when you have so many cases against you, but you have a lot of money, that you wind up with this Giuliani level intellect as your lawyer. So of course he looked at as I can't settle all 24, then we're going to go for none of them. It was a terrible mistake legally, but it helps us now know what's really happening, because of that these other cases are coming out, And this is not a situation. It should be, like you said, it shouldn't be getting worse at this point. There should be it's been a year. There should be a lid on this. There is not a lid. This is blowing out of the lid as we speak with all the things going on, both from the accusers and from the lawyer.
And look, let's also let's just be realistic about this. So the Browns have two primetime games this year. One of which they have to have. It's a Thursday night game. Okay.
Yeah.
The other one's a Monday nighter on Halloween against the Bengals. The NFL was like, it has nothing to do with the Deshaun Watson situation. Bullshit. Of course it has something to do with the Deshaun Watson situation. They don't want to put him on television.
Right.
I still believe so many people say, well, he's going to get 6 games. He's going to get 6 games. He's got 24 civil suits against him for sexual misconduct and assault. You're going to give him 6 games for that?
I wouldn't be surprised because that's how the NFL operates, or how it operated in the past. I know they've changed the way they're doing things now. It's not Goodell just spinning a wheel the way it's been in the past. But I mean, I don't think that's justice, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do. And they do it on July 1st. So we're like, oh my God, they go away. And they're like, well, that buys us time and it buys us credibility when he comes back.
Oh, that's definitely the weekend it's happening. I was on Sirius XM radio last night and they asked me about that. I said, the 100%. The second everybody starts looking forward to fireworks, the NFL is going to be, oh, by the way, suspended. Yeah. And then just go away for the weekend. I'm with you there. Right. You also wrote something in Football Outsiders I read, I think it was about a week ago, about these teams that fool themselves into contention.
Right.
And you led with the Browns. And it was well written. It was funny as usual. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I've been saying the same thing. I feel like the Browns have convinced themselves with $230 million guaranteed for Deshaun Watson. Hey, if we get him, we can win the Super Bowl, which also fed into the whole, hey, we'll pay David Njoku like he's Travis Kelce. Right? Like that, for the same narrative, they've spent, as you mentioned in your story, and I've talked about here as well, like they've spent an ungodly amount of money. And I look at them, and I know you feel similarly. They're maybe good for like a playoff win if every star in the world aligns, and then they'll go to Buffalo or to Kansas City and get hammered in a playoff game, and that'll be the end of it. And I don't know at this point where the Browns go. Like, I feel like they've boxed themselves into a corner, not only with Watson, but with this roster. Like, I don't know how you get, unless they draft incredibly. I don't know where you go other than just, they're going to go 10-7 at best and lose to Cincinnati. It feels like a franchise that isn't really interested in winning all of it. It's just interested in being relevant, which for them would be a huge step up, but still nowhere near enough.
Right. It's kind of like where the Broncos are. I think we're going to talk about the Broncos a little bit. Hey, we're relevant again. That kind of matters after 5 or 6 years, like wandering in the mountains somewhere. But draft incredibly with what they gave away a lot of draft picks to do what they're doing here. And a super cynical move would have been you bring in Watson with all of this. And if you look at how they structured a salary cap, he's not making a lot this year. And the cynical move would be, we can absorb a 1-year suspension with this guy and we can compete in 2023. We'll be in better shape than we were Baker. A 1-year suspension gives us, the debt was paid, move on. I don't know if anyone would buy that, but it gives them like safe harbor in that respect. That's not what they're doing. They're leveraging themselves in such a way so that in future years, everything's going to be too expensive. So they're really building and banking for this year. And you're right. You need pretty much Watson for all 17 games. You need Amari Cooper to have one of his best seasons. You need, Jadeveon Clowney to live up to this 1-year deal. And you need all those things to go 11-6. That's what you need to do if you're the Browns. And that's not a good way of running your organization.
Do you think ultimately the Browns will regret paying Deshaun Watson $230 million? Or do you think it'll be one of these things where in 3 years, nobody's talking about this and he's throwing for 35 touchdowns? I mean, how do you think ultimately the Browns will look back on this contract?
Very badly. I think that in the future, he will have some seasons that are franchise quarterback type seasons, but they will coincide. First of all, they will come after all of this tumult. It'll come too late for the current organization. It'll come too late for the current general manager and head coach. So there'll be another regime change, which they have every year and a half. And usually these regime changes start with Jimmy Haslam issuing a decree and everybody having to scramble to do what he says. And then they didn't do exactly what he said the way they said it. So they all get thrown out the bathwater. And so, in a couple of years, Deshaun Watson throwing for 35 touchdowns. This is a 9-8 team, for $50 million. That's a regret. That's a regret in my opinion. Even though for the Browns, it's like, well, we're still relevant. it didn't pay off, and it caused all of this, and it's causing anguish among fans, among people in society. I think that's Jimmy Haslam doesn't care, the Haslams don't care. That's part of this as well. It's a toll being paid on the credibility of your organization on top of everything else.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I also just think, look, on the field, he's a great talent, and you'd be a liar if you said otherwise. I also think, the team he used to be on was a team that had a lot of guys on it.
Yes.
They never won shit.
Right.
Like, not for nothing. Like, and it wasn't like people look back, and I've said this before on Twitter, and people always come on Twitter and they're like, hey, Bill O'Brien. Okay, yeah, sure, they did. Bill O'Brien was a staple of Come On Coach before he left us. But that team was loaded with talent for years. Yeah. Like, it wasn't like Deshaun Watson was there for 1 year. That team had a lot of talent, and they won one playoff game. Like, right. As much as I think Watson, the player, is fantastic, would I take him to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years? I probably wouldn't. Not in that conference. No. I mean, I don't even know if I think he's a top 5 quarterback in that conference.
He's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. I don't think he's Herbert at this point, what Herbert has shown me. So
I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously he's a very, very good quarterback, but you're right. They had a Hall of Fame defender in J.J. Watt. They had a potential Hall of Fame receiver in Nuke Hopkins. They had Clowney at his prime. They had other guys who could play.
Merciless.
They had Merciless.
They had Justin Reed. They had Tyrann Mathieu. Like, they couldn't win anything. They couldn't do anything with that team.
Right. So you take the O'Brien discount and say, well, that was part of it there. But
sure.
Are the Browns, okay, Stefanski seems like he's a good egg. With Haslam calling the shots, this is better?
Right.
This is a better environment?
And I don't know that Andrew Berry's a good GM. I have no idea if he's a good GM.
I have no idea.
Right? Which, by the way, one of these days, have to somehow make sure we get a nice Browns audience, and then just bring in the Sashi Brown conversation, which you and I have had privately many times. All right, let's move on from the Browns. Let's go into the future. So, four topics. We're going to hit them all, and then we got Ben Heisler of BetSided stopping by. So, number one here, let's stay in the AFC. Let's go to the AFC West. Will the Broncos regret giving Russell Wilson 5 years and $250 million? Now, the reason I asked that is Mike Kliss threw that out there, kind of spitballing that, hey, this might be what he ends up asking for. That got twisted into that, hey, Mike Kliss is reporting this, and then he backtracked, and the whole thing. Whatever, who cares? Okay. The bottom line is that was the term, and those are the numbers there. For clarity, Russell Wilson is 34 years old. He has 2 years left on his current contract. So if that was tacked on as an extension, he would be getting that money into his 40s.
Right.
Do you think that 5 and 250 in the current climate would be okay, or do you think it would be a mistake for Russell Wilson?
It's a little bit of a 1 year at a time thing. I need to see Russell Wilson in Denver. I need to see proof of concept for it, and then we can move on. Reality is 5 and 250 is coming. It's coming for quarterbacks. It should probably be something that's for a high-level prime quarterback. And I would feel more comfortable extending somebody from Russell Wilson's level to 40 than I would necessarily handing that to the 25-year-old coming off of, his breakout year. Okay, because I do have if this was Seattle talking about this, it's like, well, we know what Russell Wilson is, what we're going to do around it. Then I would say, it's what you do. Go for it. Okay. For the Broncos, it's a little bit more like, well, let's see what he's doing here, et cetera. And the other thing we have to keep in mind is we're still in the year of salary cap austerity right now because of the COVID, the 2-year thing.
Right.
Those dollars, if you're extending dollars out into 2028, 2029, that's a big difference from what the Browns did with their 5 and 250, which is they're extending it out for like this year, next year, where we know those are big hits in this year. I don't know if those are going to be big hits in 2027, 2028.
It's a good point. I don't know that I would want to give him that contract. I don't know that I want to give most players that contract. But what leverage do they have?
That's right.
They just gave up every pick from now till kingdom come.
Right.
Like what? I mean, what are they going to do? Tell Russell Wilson's representation? No, we're good. We're good. We're not going to do that. He kind of gets whatever he wants at this point within reason. I am fascinated by them more than any other team in the league this year.
Okay.
I don't know what, Tanya, I have no idea what they're going to be. I hate admitting that as someone who does this for a living. Mm-hmm. I have looked at them a million ways and said to myself, I could see them going 12-5 and being really good. Yeah. I could see them winning 8 games.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I think their defense is a lot worse than people think it is.
Yes.
That is the one like weird caveat with them. Like I've seen so many national people jump on television and be like, "Well, they got a top 5 defense." It's like based on what?
Well, it's actually based on, I believe, yards and points. Like they finished in the top 5 last year in one of the categories.
Sure.
I forget. Yeah. But Football Outsiders, we do DVOA, we do breakdowns, and they finished, I believe, 20th. And we're projecting them for 20th or lower. And part of it is they lose guys like Shelby Harris, who are very good ball players.
Right.
Who are significant. There's a lot of, Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb, who, we've heard of them, and we've never seen them string 10 good games together combined in their careers. Chubb had a great rookie year, et cetera. So one of the reasons they look like they had this great defense is because their offense was the slowest moving offense in the world. And if you watched Broncos games, it was Teddy Bridgewater handing off again, handing off some more, going down the 1-2 on the snap count, et cetera, et cetera. And they would move the ball okay. There's an okay offense. They'd punt, and then the other team get the ball on the 10-yard line. So the defense was always great time of possession, great field position, and we remembered the big names from the old times, so we thought it was a great defense. You're right, though. It is not a strong defense, and that's going to impact them because I think the offense is going to be pretty good.
I do too, and I look at them defensively. Surtain's a really good young player. Simmons is a very good safety.
Yes,
Chubb is good when he's healthy,
which is never.
Randy Gregory has 16 and a half career sacks, and is getting $70 million.
Right.
I applauded them with the Russell Wilson move. I was just blown away by the amount of money that they paid Randy Gregory.
Yes.
Randy Gregory has literally never been an impact player in his career, ever.
And he's 30. He's 30.
It's insane. My dad is a saying that I've lived by my whole life. Potential is a fancy word for saying you've never done anything.
Right.
And, I mean, it's true. What has he ever done? $70 million for 16 and a half sacks? I look at them defensively. I couldn't even name a linebacker. I mean, other than Surtain, the corners aren't good.
No.
There's no – and Fangio was a horrible head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator.
Right.
Losing that guy is he's kind of like Wade Phillips, where Wade Phillips as a head coach doesn't work, but Wade Phillips as a defensive coordinator, every team that ever had him, their defense is top 5 in the league, immediately.
Right.
I don't know. They're a weird team. I don't know what to make of them. I think they're going to end up being a team that fights for a wild card spot.
Right.
All right.
One more thought on this. I think Russell Wilson is more likely to ask for 3 and 170, 3 years and 170 or something like that than 150. Russell Wilson has never wanted to be locked in for a long period of time. He wants to go up with the market. Now, it might change as he gets close to 40, and he's like, I better lock it in. But I don't know if 5 and 1 and 250 is legitimately what he would ask for.
Quickly, but do you think he's still a top 10 quarterback?
I think so. We looked at everything after the injury in his hand healed. After it healed, not the first game or two back, where Geno Smith's out there. Get out there, Russell. Do something. And he looked like the old Russell Wilson. I think he's still a top 10 quarterback.
I agree. I think he is too. Although I got to tell you that whole hand injury, right? He rehabbed it 27 hours a day. Needed more hours apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Staying in the AFC one more time. Then we're going to go to the NFC for a few. Actually, staying in the same division. So I was thinking about this earlier. Who has more yards this season? Any Kansas City wide receiver, so we're not talking about Kelsey.
Okay.
Any Kansas City receiver or Tyreek Hill. And I think it's interesting. Look, Tyreek Hill is better than any Kansas City receiver, but he's now with Tua.
Yeah.
These other guys are coming in there with Mahomes in an offense that is going to be much more pass-heavy than Miami's offense, you would think, based on Mike McDaniel's past history.
Right.
Which way do you lean? Tyreek with Tua or anybody with Mahomes?
It's going to be Tyreek. They're going to force feed him the ball. He's going to be catching 10 swing passes a game. He's going to be doing some of the Deebo Samuel stuff in the old Mike McDaniel offense. And it's just going to be, he might have games where it's 10 catches and winds up being 85 yards because Tua's, floating it, from me to that lamp over there. But he's going to get that. And I think the Chiefs guys, it's going to be very much a share of the wealth, especially if you take Kelsey out of the equation.
Sure. Yeah. I will at the risk of sounding like a homer, I will go the other way on this for one reason. Okay. I think somebody on the Chiefs, and my somebody would be Juju Smith-Schuster. That's who I would peg. I just think we'll have 1,200 yards receiving, and it won't make sense. And then he'll go sign somewhere else and have 700 yards. Right? It's kind of my old Colts Peyton Manning syndrome theory. Like Manning would get Austin Collie
Yeah.
and just immediately 1,100 yards, and you're like, this guy's not even good. How is this happening?
Right.
Juju Smith-Schuster actually was really good.
Yeah.
And then Ben Roethlisberger got hurt, and then Ben Roethlisberger came back and played like he was hurt the rest of his career.
Yes.
I think with Mahomes, if Smith-Schuster's healthy, he's going to have a really good year. Like, Valdez-Scantling, I can't get – like, he'll have, like, 2 plays a game that will matter. Right. They will just throw a ball 50 yards down the field, and he'll get himself open. You know, like, I don't think, though, he's going to be a guy who consistently puts up 100 yards in a game, where Smith-Schuster, I think, actually can in that offense.
Yeah.
The argument – look, Hill's definitely better than any of these receivers. But I worry – the other thing with Tua is, like, is he going to be healthy? Is he going to stay on the field? Like,
well, Teddy Bridgewater would definitely force feed Tyreek. Teddy Bridgewater knows where his bread is buttered. Like, here you go.
I mean, it's going to be like I just wonder, and maybe it's not the case, but like is Hill turned into Jarvis Landry on this team, where it's just like 100 catches for 900 yards because it's just everything's a bubble screen and everything's a quick slant. Now, listen, you're talking to somebody who watched every snap of Tyreek Hill's career.
Right.
Nobody has more respect for his ability to take a 5-yard pass and go 80 yards with it.
Right.
I mean, that is, I guess my concern is in Kansas City, as you certainly know, Tanya, like safeties played basically in another zip code with them because it was like, well, anything in front of us is great. We'll give up yards all day. You're not going to play like that against Miami.
Right.
You know, because you're not, even with Waddle and Hill, you're not like fearing the deep ball with Tua. He's got to prove to you he can do it.
Right. I'm not sure because I think that there's going to be enough. I don't think you need to fear the quarterback so much as the receivers on these deep balls. Because again, if he gets past you and it floats out there, they're going to give up some deep passes. I think you're going to see more deep safeties than you saw last year when that offense was just ridiculous in Miami. And I think Tua was part of that, but the dueling banjo coordinators were part of it too. Yeah. Going back to Juju, though, you're right. I mean, he had a 97 catch season. Where it was 97 catches for 98 yards or something like that because Roethlisberger has just given up. On that shallow stuff, he is very effective. He's going to be much more effective on that shallow stuff when it's coming from Mahomes, when there is a legitimate fear of MVS, of Kelsey, etc. But I don't know what the distribution is going to be. I think Mecole is going to have a bigger role. I think Mecole is going to catch a lot of goofy short passes.
I think that's what they'll do. Yeah.
Huh?
That's what they'll do with him. They will get the ball in Hardman's hands and then let him.
Right. It'll be screen, and then a bomb once in a while for him. And I think Sky Moore will play a role enough to, again, if we're not talking about the overall quality offense, but leech it down to the point where Tyreek Hill getting fed is going to get more than any of them. I would lean towards Tyreek.
That's fair. Do you quick on this? We'll go to the NFC. Do you, from your perspective, does the Tyreek Hill trade? How much does that impact Kansas City?
Looking at what we did at Football Outsiders, they've gone from this team that was going to be up there with the Buffalo Bills in projections to a team that's in the soup with the Chargers and with the Bengals and with I don't have the teams in front of me, but like they're in the soup to like not win the division anymore. And what happens is it takes a historic offense and turns into a very, very good offense. Now, on the flip side of that, they get defensive players in response, both that they were able to draft and they had the cap space to bring in Jordan Reed. The defense goes from almost historically bad to kind of just below average. And that's what we're looking at. So it turns the Chiefs into a regular team. I guess that's the bottom line. They're a regular team now like everybody else. The last couple of years, they were something different. They were kind of like the 2007 Patriots in this weird category up there. Now they're back in the pack a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, you know what? For me, it's going to come down to these rookie defenders. I mean, I think in a lot of ways – I feel like Mahomes will figure them out. Like offensively, I still think they're going to score a lot of points. Yeah. Defensively, it's like you're going to actually have to play defense now.
Right.
That is an interesting part of this.
Right.
All right. AFC West will leave it behind. NFC West, excuse me, we will go to the Cardinals. So Kyler Murray skipped the initial OTAs. Now he's there. He's been pining for an extension in ways that are very millennial-esque. Instagram, and then his agent put out an all caps bulletin, which I don't understand.
You're a millennial. This is Zoomer-esque.
It's concerning. If you're the Cardinals, would you extend him now or would you wait?
wait. And this is, I'm the Cardinals now, so I'm not talking about the greater good of NFL players, society, etc.
Right.
I am the Cardinals. I am writing checks right now. I am
You are.
waiting because I have the leverage of a 5th-year option. I have the leverage of a salary cap, and I need to see this young man stay healthy in this offense, and him and Cliff Kingsbury combined do something in December besides fall apart completely. So that's the problem we have right now, especially when we start talking about numbers like 5 years and $250 million guaranteed, this whole Deshaun Watson thing. Right. If he goes for an extension and says, I want all guaranteed money, if I'm Keim, I'm like, well, here's your guaranteed money right here. Your 5th-year option's guaranteed, and the salary cap, your franchise tag is guaranteed the following year, and we'll guarantee you a year as you go. So he hasn't done enough, and he's not enough of a type of player. And I'm talking about a small guy who scrambles. You're worried about a small guy who scrambles. I think that's a reasonable thing to say. He hasn't demonstrated that he's worth that level of risk, and so the Cardinals should not take that risk.
So I'll be very succinct with this. There's no way in hell they should suspend him right now. Extend him, excuse me. Like, why? Why would you, if you're the Cardinals, why?
Right.
I mean, he hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't won a division. Yeah. He's hurt every year the second half of the season.
Right.
I mean, talent, sure, he's got talent.
Right.
But if I'm them, go play a 4th year.
Yeah.
The Browns, everybody thought they should have extended Baker Mayfield last offseason, and then what happened? Right. It doesn't hurt to have more view of the player. I mean, look, if he's great, fine. Like I always hear these people say, well, then he's going to be more expensive. He's going to be expensive now.
Right.
What are you going to save? A couple million a year? Who cares? I'd rather see him for another year. You
save the money this year on him. Like if you hand him $30 million more this year, or $30 million more this year, if you wait another year, you save this year's money guaranteed because you didn't spend it. So some people like their handle of finances blows my mind sometimes when we talk about these things. But yeah, that's exactly it. You know, it was wisdom to extend Carson Wentz for the Eagles. It was wisdom to extend Jared Goff for the Rams a couple of years ago because they're getting into the market. It's all changed now. It's not just because both of those guys turned out to suck. It is all changed because of the structure of the contracts now, where you simply don't have to.
Also, with him, real quick, like, are we sure that he can play in a regular system? Because Cliff Kingsbury's system is a flying circus.
Right.
Now, he's extended for reasons I'll never understand.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they don't care. Mm-hmm. But look, I like Kyler Murray. I think he's a borderline top 10 quarterback, but I would not extend him right now. I wouldn't. To me, if you're getting extended after 3 years, you are the rare heir. You are Mahomes, you are Allen, you are Herbert, you are Burrow. I'm not extending somebody who has yet to win anything of any note and has major legitimate injury issues. All right, real quick, and then we're bringing Ben Eisler on. This one's just a fun one. I was looking at the NFC South, and I thought to myself, Tom Brady, he must have done something well in a previous life because nobody has ever had an easier road in the division that they play in ever than Tom. I mean, he's been in the league now for, 22 years and has never played in one division where anybody's been any good. So here's my question to you. Who wins more games this year in the NFC South? The Buccaneers or the rest of the division combined?
The problem you have here is that the New Orleans Saints are I'm going to call them a wild card team. And if nothing else, so the New Orleans Saints are going to come in with 4 wins against the Panthers and against the Falcons. So there's 4 wins right there. And they play teams like the Commanders along the way. So that's your problem right there. If you look at the Saints roster, now I have big opinions about the way the Saints are managing things with their salary cap and things like that. I think this team is building a 9-8 team this year that's going to go 3-74 for the rest of the decade because of what they're doing. But this year, enough veterans on the offensive line. You look at guys like, Jarvis Landry coming in, Honey Badger coming in. They're a wild card team. Them plus the other dipweeds are going to get past, 14 wins.
I'm taking the Bucs.
Okay.
I swear to you, I'm taking the Bucs. The Saints, by the way, are like that family that's maxed out like 5 credit cards.
Yeah.
And you just like they're your neighbors, and you just keep looking at them, and you're like, how many boats do they need?
Right, there's 3 boats, right?
Like they understand, right, that they can't make the mortgage payment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you just know at some point like that bill's coming due, and you're about to have a new neighbor because the house has been foreclosed on. That's the Saints. Who, by the way, the Buccaneers, not far behind, but at least really good in the meantime.
You're spending it on Tom Brady, not
Right.
Jameis Winston.
Exactly.
And Cameron Hayward in the year 2027. Like, excuse me, Cameron Jordan in the year 2027, not like this year. But like when he's 46, you're still paying him.
Right. It's a train wreck. Like and I love the cap is fake crowd. Tell me that in 5 years when New Orleans is starting a beer vendor at receiver because they literally can't put anybody else out there. The Falcons are awful. The Falcons might win 3 games at most this year. Right. The Panthers might win 4, and I've got the Saints for about 7. I think the Bucs can match that. And I mean, it's the only thing that scares me with the Bucs is their average age is like 72.
Right.
That is the one. You look at them and you're just like, oh boy, that could be a lot of issues in a hurry. But with that being said, let's go to Ben Heisler of BetSided. Ben joins us every week. Of course, you all know this. He was waiting patiently while Tanya and I were waxing about the NFC South. So thank you. In fact, you're a gambling man. Bucks or the rest of the NFC South combined, who wins more games this season?
As tempted as I am to go ahead and tail that Bucks pick, something inevitably has to go wrong along the way for them to completely outdo all 3 teams, right? Like they'll find one.
You seen that rule?
I've seen them. I don't necessarily like what I see, but they'll luck into 3, 4, 5 wins along the way. You said the Falcons might get 3, and then the Saints will probably somehow still end up stealing a game from the Buccaneers. Right. That's what we've seen over the last couple of years, was whatever Dennis Allen voodoo magic he has cooking up down by the bayou. So I think at some point they'll surpass Tampa Bay, but it'll be a lot closer than I would say most people would expect.
I'm telling you guys right now, the Saints are the linchpin to this whole thing. Like if they go like 6-11, like if Jameis throws another 30 picks, the Bucs are cashing that ticket, my friends. The Panthers are horrendous. The Panthers. Here's my prediction for the Panthers. You're going to hear in preseason how good the offense looked because they're going to have McCaffrey back, and Darnold's not going to be facing any pressure, and it's going to be DJ Moore, and it's going to be you're going to hear all this crap, and then the season's going to start, and it's going to be all right. They still can't block anybody, and I love Ike Ekwonu. He's going to be great, but they have no offensive line, and Darnold is horrendous. And it's going to be, oh, right, no, they're terrible again. The Falcons, I defy anyone to name 8 players on that team. Oh, God. They have the worst roster of anybody I've ever seen. I mean, I think the Texans are better than the Falcons.
I think you're right, too.
Falcons got one guy outside of Kyle Pitts, who you're like, he's proven to be good on offense, and then Terrell's the only guy on defense.
The Falcons are your answer to the cap is fake. This is a team that has crashed against the cap. I can't even get players that people can name onto the roster because they're paying Matt Ryan and all these other guys from the past.
It's incredible. It is that team. Like the fact that Brady gets to play the Panthers and the Falcons for a quarter of the schedule, there should be an investigation. I mean, and he's like, by the way, actually, here, and we'll move on.
Really quickly, Matt, what would you say? What would you say WinBet has their win total at for your Atlanta Falcons?
Oh my God! All right, well,
the total's at like 7.5, isn't it? On the line, isn't it?
I was going to say
for the Falcons. No, Mike. They are at the bottom of the barrel with the aforementioned Houston Texans.
5.5.
Lower.
Ooh.
4.5.
4.5. That is the number right now.
I hit the under all day long.
Oh, gotta be careful there.
No, my God, I take the under.
2 against the Panthers. 2 against the Panthers.
I understand. Yeah. I'm factoring that in. Look, I'm not a gambler, but I had a buddy last year ask me your best bet on the under over or the over unders. Who would you take? Best bet. I said I'd take Jacksonville 7.5 last year. And so let me tell you something right now. You take your mortgage and put it on the under because Urban Meyer is not winning 8 games in the NFL. And they lost, if you remember, they got pummeled in week 1 against Houston.
Yeah.
And my buddy texted me and was like, thank you, good night. You knew right there, you're like, that thing's cashing by Thanksgiving. The Falcons, 4.5, I mean, that is very low.
Yeah.
They have Mariota. And nobody, like that team, dude, I would hit the under aggressively. So do you know off the top of your head, maybe I have it in front of you after pulling that, what is the Panthers over-under?
They don't have it listed right now at WinBet. Maybe because they already have enough liability on the under. But I can check consensus for you, odds for you very quickly. My guess is it would probably be right around the same area. Very rarely. You where do you see him at, Mike? 6?
I'm a 6 at a different book. I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
6.
about right for where they
right.
posted. But yeah, you can go under on that one too.
I probably would. But the Falcons won aggressive. And by the way, the Jets, if any of these books are buying into the Jets, I also would like to hit that under aggressively. Like, if the number starts with a 7 or higher for the Jets anywhere, give me the under.
I'm looking.
Like, have you seen what the Jets' schedule is to start
the
year?
It's brutal.
It's unbelievable.
You know what's interesting though is they're at 5.5 at WinBet.
Yep.
Okay,
minus 160 to hit the over. If you want to get them on the under, Matt, you can get them at plus 145 odds.
Oh God!
Okay. But how low are you willing to go? Is 5.5 a reasonable number for you?
5.5 is a reason. I probably would stay away. But look, the point I'm making, I saw somebody the other day like laying out their schedule, and they're like, "Well, they could win 7 in a row the back half of the schedule." Like, okay, have you ever heard of a team just giving up after a while? Here's their schedule. You tell me how the Jets are getting to even 7 wins. Baltimore, Cleveland. We don't know what's going to be with Cleveland. Cincinnati, at Pittsburgh, Miami, at Green Bay, at Denver, home to New England, home to Buffalo, at New England. Then you get the Bears, at Minnesota, at Buffalo. You now have 4 games left. That team's winning a bunch of games. Like
That's trouble.
They have no shot. Like, that team's going to get killed. And I got to listen to one more person. Well, they got Garrett Wilson. Unless Garrett Wilson is Jerry Rice. Okay? It doesn't matter. Even if he is, Zach Wilson's involved. Like, the idea that the Jets are going to make some big push based on what? That team's schedule's ridiculous. They're lucky if they're not 2-11.
By the way, I don't even know how to top that. If the Falcons under, I believe, was at minus 140. So not only is the under really low, but they're kind of dissuading you from taking it, which may be the line speaking to us to just not go after these bottom feeders, not go there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the odds have a way of speaking for themselves. You might look at a number and say like, "Oh, that's a little bit intriguing." Wait, it's minus 170.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Fine. Odds makers, Vegas. I appreciate the message, the underlying message that you're trying to convey my way, and that's what you're seeing right now for Atlanta.
Right. Yeah. So, you have anything you wanted to bring in specifically, High? So I know it's the middle of the off season. It is hard to find like incredibly juicy odds on anything right now because, I mean, let's face it, it's June 7th. If not, we can continue for a few more minutes just bashing some of these teams that we would take the under on. That's fine.
You know what I'm curious about is as a fan of Mike's that I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you and connect with you personally. So I'm glad to have that opportunity. Okay. The MVP market is always fluid. It's changing, even though there's been no games to speak of. But you have a couple guys in mind, and I'm curious as to sort of how you rank some of the guys at the top compared to how Vegas is going with it, and whether or not we might be on the same page for a few guys that maybe aren't the top tier crew, but maybe with some of the books that have a little bit more variance. Is there a name or two that you've already circled as this is the guy that I'm going to have as my guy heading into the season?
Yes, Tua Tagovailoa at plus 4,000.
Okay.
No, I'm just.
I just wanted to make sure.
I started this show talking about how like bad takes travel really fast, so I figured I'd throw a bad take in there. Yeah, I'm looking at this right now, and I'm trying hard to find value in the MVP market, and it's just sort of lining up with my interpretation. So I'm going to throw Aaron Rodgers at plus 1,000 out. With that receiving core, he's not doing a three-peat. It's not what's going to happen. I see Josh Allen at the top at plus 700. He would be the first name off the top of my list here, and I don't know necessarily if that's all that juicy to do on June 7th. I'm trying to look down here and trying to find something that's really exciting. Justin Herbert at plus 1,000. Everybody's got that circled, I think. I guess I see Lamar at plus 2,500. This is a guy who's won it before. This is a guy who's coming back. Now, comeback player of the year would be also something he would win if he had a really good season, et cetera, et cetera. That might be one that I look at and say there's interesting meat on the bone there where he can get out there, have one of his signature seasons, and wind up climbing back up, and at that odds might be worth looking at.
So Lamar's a really interesting point, and
Right.
Verderame and I have talked about a few of these names on the show before, but one team that I have a bit of a fascination with is Denver this year because and Verderame and I have discussed this on the show that if you somehow dethrone the Chiefs in this division this year, I mean, the narrative that's going to shoot up for any sort of MVP possibilities is going to be through the roof. So, I mean, Herbert, I don't think there's necessarily good value there, even at 10-1. I believe that's where he's currently at over at WinBet, which works with us. But a name to go down a little bit further, assuming that Russ is able to really take the offense in a direction that he wants to take it. I know that there's conversation as to what you're going to get with Judy, with Sutton, relative to what he had with Lockett and Metcalf, but they have a very good start to the schedule, and then it gets really, really tough down the stretch of the season. But if Wilson is able to get those numbers up from the very beginning, knowing that they're going to have to throw a ton, if we're actually going to reference DVOA, the Broncos defense actually had some major struggles.
Yeah. We discussed this at length about 20 minutes ago. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I apologize.
They're not the defense a lot of people think they are.
Right. So we're talking about a team that is going to have to throw the ball downfield in a very difficult division. And if we're talking about the first 11, 12 games of the season, if Russ is off to a really good start, just purely from a value perspective, that 15-1 isn't going to be there for very long. I think he's someone that you can jump in on early as sort of a safe, reasonable expectation of he's going to put up numbers with a head coach that has worked with the MVP of the league the last 2 years with not a lot of weapons to throw to. Any idea on whether you think Wilson might be a guy that you believe in heading into this season in a much more difficult set of circumstances around him?
My worry about that sort of narrative is we just saw Matthew Stafford change teams, have a really solid season, have a sort of a breakthrough type season, win a Super Bowl, and not get any serious attention for the MVP award. And you can look at the reasons why. It's like, well, he threw all these interceptions in these games. He fell off the radar, but he wasn't even being discussed late in the year. You know, as Aaron Rodgers went up and people were talking about, Rodgers' COVID games and everything like that, Stafford wasn't offered up as the alternative. So like the idea that the narrative is going to push Wilson forward if his stats are not super, super cherry, I don't necessarily buy it at that point. Now, plus 1,400, plus 1,500, I mean, I don't hate it, but it's not. I don't think that's quite enough of a value for a guy who also has had great seasons and has never gotten a lot of attention from MVP voters. I'm not necessarily like really sanguine about buying in at that point.
So I will throw my 2 cents in with this. My biggest fear of the Wilson is, as you mentioned, the end of the schedule for them is insane.
Yeah.
Like the MVP is a momentum award as much as it is anything else.
Yeah.
And the end of the year, I feel like you're going to have a stretch where you're going to go, man, the last 4 games, he's thrown 6 picks to 3 touchdowns. Like that would be my concern. I will stay in the division. And we've talked about this a little bit. So for people who listen every week, you already might know where I'm going. If there's somebody I would take in the AFC West to be the MVP, other than Mahomes, who I think is just kind of an evergreen pick every year,
right?
Derek Carr, for one reason. That defense is stopping nobody. And if they win games, it's going to be because he throws for 5,000 yards. They're not going to run the ball behind that line.
Right.
The defense sucks outside of those 2 edge rushers. If I got to listen to one more pundit get up there and be like, well, I'll tell you what, the Raiders with Jones and Crosby, that defense, name anyone else on that defense. That defense is horrific outside of
Diablo.
Oh, my God. Trayvon Mullen, and is Nick Kwiatkowski, is he still there? I mean, they are horrific. And I got to listen to these people like, well, those 2 guys are going to have 30 sacks this year. No, they're not. People are going to drop back and throw the ball in half a second because people are going to be wide open. All kidding aside, in the AFC West, the Raiders are going to have to score in those head-to-head matchups. The Raiders are going to have to score 35 points a game to have any shot to win any of them. I mean, the Chargers, Chiefs, and Broncos are going to score 1,000,000 points in those 6 games.
Right.
And the only way the Raiders are winning is if Carr just goes nuts and goes head-to-head with those guys. Now, maybe he can with Waller and Renfro and Adams. And that's why, for me, he's a dark horse pick. If he has a great year and they win 11 games and somehow they're a playoff team, they win the division or something, which I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to win about 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
But if they were to win a bunch of games, I feel like the only reason is going to be because Carr just puts up an unbelievable stat line.
Right.
And after what happened last year and the way he led them, he's kind of a sentimental pick. Like I think for value, and isn't he also like 25-1, something like that?
He's 30-1. 30-1 is win bet. Yes.
I would take him as a value bet based off of how I think they're going to have to play, and they're going to be in the limelight because they're the Raiders, and they're going to play 1,000,000 primetime games.
I will say I'm seeing him at 22-1, so there's volatility in that market.
Yes.
So, folks, if you are out there and you're like, I like playing MVP picks on June 7th, God bless you, make sure you're shopping around for the odds that you like for these picks.
Yes.
And then
no, I think I go to that hesitation. Yeah. Let me throw one other dark horse names your way, because again, if we're talking about the wide variety of components that go in to determining an MVP candidate, it's having a favorable schedule, having opportunities to put up big numbers, and then finishing strong down the stretch of the season. Verderame, we talked about how Jacksonville is a team that could really make a sizable jump this year, a legitimate.
Yes, Urban Meyer's gone. Yes,
Urban Meyer's gone. Doug Peterson is there. Someone that has an actual understanding of how NFL offenses work
and humans work,
or human beings. Yes, the ability to talk mano a mano to another person and not kick kickers. Yes, that automatically puts them in a whole other stratosphere. We're going to see a much better version of Trevor Lawrence this year with really no competition in the division other than the Indianapolis Colts. And you're talking about plenty of weapons to throw to. Marvin Jones can still go downfield. They just spent a bunch of money on Christian Kirk. Whether you want to determine that the money spent was good money towards Kirk, it's a sunk cost at this point, but he can still play.
Oh, it's not good money, but he's better than who they had. Yes.
And they just spent a bunch of money to go ahead and keep the offensive line intact and start to be able to build that up again. And there's also reports of Travis Etienne being used in a Deebo Samuel type of role. Again, very early, guys aren't even hitting each other yet. We really don't know if that's going to be how they use him. But 50-1, 75-1 at some books. We've seen second-year players take massive leaps in the last 5 years with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's in a spot where I expect it to happen, but could it, relative to the competition that he's going to face this year with the worst, with one of the most favorable schedules in the NFL? I was poo-pooing the idea even just a few weeks ago, but the more I've started to look at it, the more I'm a bit intrigued as someone that wants to just get a little bit of exposure on Lawrence if he's able to put a lot of it together with a real asset coach.
Right. My concern here is that he has a breakout season, and that means Doug Peterson, who's plus 2,000, 20-1 for Coach of the Year, gets the accolades, and that they might even give Comeback Player of the Year to Trevor Lawrence for coming back from the experience of having to cope with Urban Meyer in his life. Which again, that Ryan Tannehill, like Adam Gase is something you come back from in this world. Urban Meyer is worse than Adam Gase, therefore. So that would be one concern I would have there. By the way, Lawrence is not listed for Comeback Player of the Year. I was looking, not on the book I'm looking at. But that would be my worry. That's like he would have to do something so stratospheric that it wouldn't be like, wow, what a great year. Let's give all the awards to other people and give him all the secondary awards.
That's a good point. And I mean, there's no question. Trevor Lawrence is trying to come back from like the football version of Nom at this point. Okay. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who's seriously like a sports psychologist for what he went through as a rookie?
Right.
That is at the top of the list. By the way, and we can wrap it up here. If I had to give one best bet, like kind of like I did last year with Jacksonville to my buddy, I don't even know what the Pats win total is. Doesn't matter. Makes no difference. Give me the under. I don't care.
Not buying into play caller Matt Patricia.
Sir, you brought up my reason. I saw that and was like, I don't care who's coaching this team, what their reputation is. Every good thing comes to an end, okay? the Pats are 8.5. Yeah, I'd hit the under so hard I'd break my screen. All right, under. Why in God's name would you take the over on this other than literally, well, it's Belichick. That's it. They even defensively, they're not good anymore. J.C. Jackson's gone. Devin McCourty's 100. I love Judon, but other than him, there's nobody in that front seven that you're like, oh my God, that guy's a great player. They're in a division that's better. I mean, I just crapped on the Jets, and rightfully so. But the Dolphins are better. And the Dolphins seem to always beat New England anyway, for reasons I'll never understand. And the Bills will probably kick their teeth in twice. New England is not good. And by the way, remember, this is how quickly things change in the NFL. Remember a year ago, not even a year ago, if we're actually looking at the calendar, maybe 8 months ago, Mac Jones, there was all these dopes on the television who were like, hey, baby goat. He's now the 13th best quarterback in the conference. Okay? So they're going to get yoked a whole bunch of times. And by the way, we also saw what happened to them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When they played a real team in a real game and got beat by 100, and it could have been worse. So yeah, I if you're out there and you're thinking okay, $100, I got $100. What should I do? Under. The under on New England all day and half the night. And Josh saying that's brave coming from a Boston guy. I forget who started that on this thing, but whoever did, I'm in deep pain. Southie over here, sure. I'm sorry. I can't hit the under hard enough for New England.
I thought when I looked at it that the line would be buoyed by all the casuals because the Patriots line would be like the Yankees line. All the casuals come in.
Right.
8.5 means the casuals are not biting on this because I thought it'd be up around 9.5 because of the Belichick factor. That's a sign of kind of where the public really thinks of this team, and they think closer to you, Matt, than I thought they would.
I just can't get there. Based on what? Because if you're saying that you think they're over, they're probably a playoff team. There's no way in hell that team's a playoff team. No. Mac Jones throwing to Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. Good luck, guys. Have fun. Good luck getting 10 wins in that. Even 9 wins. I also Belichick, as great as he is, it all ends someday for all of us.
It usually comes when you start surrounding yourself with your old lackeys.
Yeah.
Rather than good people with fresh ideas. Bring my lackeys back and keep my lackeys close to me. That's not a good sign when
Matt Patricia. One day I'll have to write a column on this. Matt Patricia was a terrible defensive coordinator.
Yes,
got the Detroit job because Bob Quinn, former New England hand, was like, well, who the hell's available out of New England? Because I have no original thoughts. Brought in Matt Patricia. If you remember, they beat the Patriots his rookie year on Sunday Night Football. And I swear to you that bought him 3 years in Detroit. Yes. They won that game by a miracle. And that was enough for Detroit to say, that's it. Right. That's it. The savior has come down. And now he gets canned, right? Has to sit out a year, the obligatory, all right, actually, he was in New England last year.
No, he was doing scouting stuff, right. Yes. He's apparently great at everything. He can be
I was going to say.
He can be a play caller. He can be a defensive coordinator. He can be a coach.
He's
having a versatile skill set does not make you great at everything.
So now he's apparently the offensive coordinator, which look, if Brady was there, I'd just say, yeah, whatever, who cares? Because he's not really an offensive coordinator. He's standing there with a headset that's not plugged in. Okay. Right. Which is, by the way, what Josh McDaniels has done for the last decade. I look forward to him with the Raiders. Josh McDaniels has been atrocious every single place he's been that doesn't involve Tom Brady.
Right.
Everywhere.
Right.
Okay, including New England. When he didn't have Tom Brady, it was an offense that couldn't move the ball for more than 3 yards at a shot. And now apparently he's a genius. But I look forward to Patricia running an offense that their main weapon is Damian Harris. And it's just Mac Jones throwing a quick out for 40 plays worth of the game. But anyway, I digress. I look forward to telling people to hit the New England under aggressively, as that team is not good. And I don't care that Belichick is great as he's not saving that team. That team is not good.
No, they're done. And whether or not we all find a way to get everything circled back, you're going to go ahead and lay your 40-1 Tua Tagovailoa MVP odds.
I was kidding.
This is how rumors get started, right?
Well, yeah.
Pop you just run with it. Yes. No, go ahead and get your overs on the Bills and unders everywhere else in that division. And you can feel you can get a nice sound sleep when you go to bed this football season.
All right. Hey, Heist, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Coming on. What do you got going on at BetSide? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, plenty of stuff for the NBA Finals, NHL Stanley Cup Finals as well. Every baseball game that you need for today, all those stories are up and posted at BetSided. And then make sure you guys join us a little bit later on today. Daily bet slip, 5 p.m. East Coast time. It'll be myself and Reed Wallach going through the games of the night that you should be wagering on. Got to look at the American League Cy Young awards, including a couple guys that I think are a bit off the radar that still have a great opportunity to work their way up to get some value. That's every day, 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and then Bet and Breakfast. You can hang out with us on our live stream at 11 a.m. East Coast time, Saturday and Sunday as well. So yeah, we'll see you guys right here on this very YouTube channel a little bit later on today.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Hopefully people with the hockey, with the Stanley Cup playoffs, hopefully they bet the Avalanche because that was a ritualistic killing against Edmonton. That team has more talent on their defense corps than most teams have up front. So in any event, I digress. Heisler, thank you very much, man. Appreciate you as always. And of course, have you back in next week.
All right, fellas. Take it easy.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. Tanya's been nice enough to give me an hour to do this nonsense. Look, we always wrap up, Tanya, with what's going on. I got to say, I got to kind of set you up for this one, and then we can we'll wrap. You would remember me probably about 3 weeks ago now. You had a piece about the Bears and their receivers that was received aggressively. And I got to tell you, funny story to this. So your reach apparently is better than mine, and God bless you for it, because the same day that you wrote that, I wrote Stag in the Box about how the Bears were actively trying to get Justin Fields fired.
Right.
Almost literally almost wrote the exact same thing the same morning.
Right.
And I had a couple of people in the comments like, "Oh, fuck you," like basically like that. But nothing like visceral, like on Twitter. You wrote that the Bears just suck, essentially, offensively.
Right.
And I fly under the radar, a couple of hate comments. You're all over the place, and people are going crazy. By the way, obviously, I agree with you. I wrote the exact same thing.
Right.
They are horrific to a point of almost they should be charged with a crime offensively. I was brought on by a Chicago station later that week, and your story came up. Like, they're saying he's trying to purposely get him out of there. I'm like, I don't know if they're trying to purposely get Justin Fields out of there. But let me tell you something. They're going to get him out of there because they are horrible around this poor kid. So I just want you to know, you've taken over the city of Chicago.
I love how they don't call me. I may have more reach or whatever. You get the phone call to talk about my article, which is better because I don't want to talk about it on some hostile radio station. But I'm at Mike Sneer. I'm not hard to find. My email is easy to get to. So, and some of these stations have had me on in the past, but
it was just brought up as an aside. But it was brought up
as an aside. Look, this is what teams do. Justin Fields is not the new regime's guy. He's not the new regime's guy, and they're playing games. We talked about this on in the past over beers, etc. It's like we saw something last year, we didn't like it. We want our guy in. We're going to play goofy games and be like, oh, he didn't work out in the second year. It's time for us to change the culture. That's what's going on. And by the way, the Bears were accused of a crime. They just had a practice wiped out because they can't follow the NFLPA rules. That's the geniuses that you're standing for, Bears fans. It's the season's not even started yet, and they're doing Urban Meyer stuff because they don't know how a union contract works.
I'm deeply concerned about an organization that drafts a quarterback and then immediately is like, we are doing nothing to support him actively.
Yeah. Last year, it's like, we won't run a play action pass. We won't run a read option for Justin Fields. We won't do that. We made a system for Andy Dalton. He's going to run the Andy Dalton system. And then they replaced him with, let's wait till the fourth round and draft a 74-year-old wide receiver from Tennessee.
You don't believe in Douglas Jones Jr., who's older than me at this point? And by the way, George, thanks for the comment. Let us know we can hear more from Mike. By the way, all you guys should be following him. What is your Twitter handle? Is that your name?
It's at Mike Tenier.
Okay.
That's on the screen. And of course, you can find me at Football Outsiders.
So there, yes, Football Outsiders. I've known Mike for years. We've run in the same circles when we're out and about covering the league, and I will tell you, there's no better hang. It's also funny because the things you see when you're out and about covering the NFL. Well, I mean that's something that's not for the podcast, but that'll keep you awake at night. I tell you that much. Okay. It's been look. The bottom line is Football Outsiders does great work, whether it's Mike or it's Aaron Schatz, who's been there for what feels like 100 years. And Aaron's a great guy and super smart. And it's a site that I enjoy because it has, as you brought to it, humor and levity, but also like you really learn something where it's not like this guy's PFF grade is 57.2 based off of film that no one has availability to. What is it based off of? Who the hell knows? I don't know. Or QBR, which I think is a better stat than a lot of things we have, but also like it put Tua as like a top 5 quarterback last year, which immediately disqualifies it as a statistic. And that's where I'm going to leave this whole thing for me, and then I'll let Mike have the last word. I've been getting ready. I've been thinking about what I'm going to write this year, what staples I'll have. And if you followed me and you followed me for years, you know that I'll have Stacking the Box, I'll have quarterback rankings. I mean, it's kind of what I do, and they've worked out well, so why change? But I was trying to think of new things, but one of the things I was thinking about was last year I incorporated like the different statistics into the quarterback rankings. And one of the things I had was QBR. And it got me thinking about stats and how like I will mostly ride with QBR. I mostly think it's a pretty good stat, whereas quarterback rating I think is insane. No one understands it. Somehow like 158.3 is the highest. It makes no sense.
Right.
But there are so many stats now out there in sports that I look at and say like, how do people invent these things and then not realize how terrible they are when it has like Mike Glennon as the 5th best quarterback of all time? And then these people twist themselves into knots defending it. Like, well, you don't understand Mike Glennon. It's like, actually, I do understand Mike Glennon. He sucked. Like, I do. I really do. Like, I feel like we've gone so far off the deep end with some of these things. Like stats and analytics, I really do feel like can be a very, very useful tool. But then you get these people who really aren't qualified to create a stat,
right?
And they do it, and then they just keep going, and they keep going, and it gets to a point where it's like it's kind of like in baseball. If you're a baseball fan, like that UZR, like the range for a defender, and you'll get these people who are like, "Listen, Derek Jeter actually sucked as a shortstop." It's like, listen, all right, look, I hate the Yankees with a visceral passion. Hate them.
Right.
The guy was a great player. Like the idea that like. Well, no, actually, he wasn't. You go show me a guy who could like backhand the ball, jump and twist and throw and get the guy out of first base 9 out of 10 times. And then I got to listen to somebody who has like the range of an elephant. And like, no, yeah, but he doesn't make an error. Like, we have to find common ground here in the middle somewhere. Right. I swear to you. Anyway, that's my 2 cents this week. Stop with the nonsense stats. I hate them. I've seen them on Twitter way too much this week. Tanya, what would you like to plug here as we've been?
Well, for non-nonsense stats, the Football Outsiders Almanac is coming. It'll be available in July. It is about yay thick, although this is from several years ago. So it is chock full of unbelievable stats. And these are stats that have been vetted across decades. We have a database that goes back to 1981. Plus analysis of every team, lots of fantasy advice. It is like your baseball prospectus, or what you might use as your baseball primer, only about 5 times better. Again, it'll be coming out in July. Check back at Football Outsiders, see what's going on with it, and get the release date.
Beautiful. I would highly recommend everybody go out and get it. Football Outsiders does great work. It's really insightful. It's really interesting. I love DVOA. It's my favorite stat out there because it's actually not bullshit. It's a real stat. And it as you point out, it goes back now. You guys have gone all the way back 40 years. So you can go back and look and see like the 89 49ers weren't ranked as the 23rd best team in football. Right. It actually correlates, which is nice. It might give you an idea that it works. With that being said, look, I got a lot ahead of me. I got to write a few things. I've got a piece coming up on the Eagles off season that I've been doing some work on. I'm looking forward to doing that. I think they've had a great off season. So keep an eye out for that. I'm also working on a piece about quarterbacks and the history of them and the history of black quarterbacks in the NFL. And the road that they've taken to get to the point now where you look at black quarterbacks and go, yeah, most of the best quarterbacks in the league are black quarterbacks, right? We've talked about a few today. Russell Wilson, obviously Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. On the field, Deshaun Watson. Obviously, of course, right now, his on-the-field stuff taking a back seat, and rightfully so. But that's neither here nor there. There's a lot of stuff to get to, and I coach my daughter's soccer team, and she has 2 games in 3 days, and it's all I'm going to do, not to just pull my hair out of my head as they play magnet ball, running around. It's fun. It's cute. They're all good kids, but nothing is 4- and 5-year-old soccer like a kid getting a breakaway and just running clear out of bounds and then running another 50 yards with the ball.
Yeah.
Effort is there.
With everyone following the ball everywhere it goes. Yes.
The effort is there. The execution, not so much, but that's okay. Because I was a coach, I got she plays for free, so I can't complain. So save that, pocket that $100 and call it a rainy day.
It's not worth it.
All right. I got to go and actually do real work. Tanya, I'm sure, has got to go back and do real work before Football Outsiders realizes he's collecting on their dime. So with that being said, I want to thank Mike so much for coming on, for filling in, doing a great job. We'll have him back on. We'll have some fun with this as the year goes on. But for Mike Tanya, I am Matt Verderame. Thank you so much for watching Stacking the Box. We'll be talking to you again next Tuesday.